Welcome to Voice Rising with Kara Johnstad. Enjoy weekly conversations with leading luminaries, pioneering visionaries, singers, poets, musicians, and sound healers as we explore the profound role our voice plays on the path to self-realization and global enlightenment. The internationally acclaimed singer, composer, author, healer, recording artist, voice expert, creator of Voice Your Essence, and founder of the School of Voice, Kara Johnstad uses her extraordinary spiritual gifts to empower others. Everything in this world vibrates. Everything has a frequency. A pioneer in the field of voice work and transformational songwriting. Her breakthrough methods are helping thousands of people worldwide fine-tune their body-mind-spirit system and unlock the energetic frequencies of limitless creativity, health, and abundance. Share your voice, ask your questions, join in the conversation. Receive life-changing, positive transformation and rise together to create a sound world. And here's your host, Kara Johnstad.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Voice Rising. Today I have with me in studio Jonathan and Andy Goldman, authors of the book, The Humming Effect. And to give you a little bit more background before we start the show, Jonathan is an international authority on sound healing and a pioneer in the field of harmonics. He is the director of the Sound Healers Association and president of Spirit Music Incorporated in Boulder, Colorado. A Grammy nominee, Jonathan has created numerous best-selling, award-winning recordings, including The Divine Name with Greg Braden, Reiki Chants, Frequencies, Sound of Healing, The Lost Chord, 2012 Ascension Harmonics, and Chakra Chants. And he's a double winner of Visionary Awards for Best Healing Meditation Album and Album of the Year. And I also have in studio, which is a great gift and very fun. We have in studio today, we were able to convince her. I said, yes, Andy, come. Andy Goldman, who is also part of this mastermind, this beautiful thing that's happening with the Humming Effect, a licensed psychotherapist specializing in holistic counseling and sound therapy. She is the director of the Healing Sound Seminars, co-director of the Sound Healers Association. Andy is a musician, a teacher, sound healer, award-winning author, and the wife and partner of Jonathan Goldman. So together, you guys are coming in this very powerful double pack today when we ask the questions and you answer the questions. Welcome to the studio.
Oh, Kara, thank you so much. We are just delighted and honored to be here.
It is indeed a true blessing to be with you and your listeners. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So let's start this conversation in a wonderfully easy place before we dive into those very big questions about sound consciousness. I want to ask you guys, we're going to talk a lot today about the power of the humming effect, the humming path. Do you have a powerful memory as a kid where you saw yourself or experienced humming and singing and whistling? Was music a part of your childhood?
Kara, music was a part of my childhood. Probably humming was the first thing that manifested for me, as it probably was one of the first major sounds that anybody makes. But as a, shall we say, healing therapeutic tool, even though when I first began studying this 40 years ago, when humming was probably one of the first things that I learned to do for feeling resonance, in truth, I'd say it's really only become a part of my life in the last 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Have lots of other stories about playing music and about doing all sorts of strange sounds with Tibetan monks and yogis and all this other stuff, but not the hum. Andy, what about you?
Well, the hum is such a universal sound that everyone can make. And, Kara, I do have memories of humming a lot when I was a child. Mm-hmm. And Jonathan and I have written several books. And, oh, golly, 3 or 4 years ago, we just said, wait a minute, we want to write a book that absolutely everyone can relate to in the field of sound. And we wanted it to be open to just everyone. And we looked at each other and we went, we'll write a book about the hum.
And Cara, I'm sure you've experienced, since you're an extraordinary teacher of opening the voice, etc., the fact that so many people, particularly nowadays, but have always been judgmental about their voices. And from our perspective, the one sound that nobody judges themselves on is the hum, you know. Nobody goes, I'm a good hummer, I'm a bad hummer, yeah. Everybody hums, kids, old people, everybody. We all hum.
Well, I think everyone's able to hum, of course. I mean, I do think that, you know, that's what I'm, you know, passionate about is, and I think that's what you're also leading us to in the book is that we not only everybody can hum, but we need to do the hum. You know, we need to hum while washing the dishes. We need to hum while taking a shower. Many of us plug in our radio or our tablet or whatever, and we let other people sing for us. And what we need to do is come back to that practice of tuning our own bodies through humming, whistling, singing, toning, you know, even doing gibberish. I mean, just playing with our voice.
All these totally are great. We in this particular book have sort of come up with, if you like, a technique that we call conscious humming, which is so we don't advise people to be doing it in their car or even operating machinery, because if done right, it can put you into such a powerfully blissful state that you can barely get out of a chair, let alone walk around. And so we're, you know, it's a little bit like breathing. Everyone breathes, but there's a difference between breath and pranayama.
So conscious breathing, conscious humming, and it is such an effective tool for, as a psychotherapist, I think it's a very empowering tool for people to utilize, because that humming that one might do really massages their body, their mind, and their spirit. And so if you're really stressed out about something, or something is going on in your life where there's a lot of chaos or upheaval, and honestly, Cara, if a person would stop and just begin to consciously hum, if possible, it will bring them back into alignment internally.
Right.
We've had that experience over and over and over.
Cara, do you, being over now in Germany, but I'm sure that they have a lot of similar, I found it really entertaining, but I found that shows like American Idol, now I don't know what in Berlin is the...
we have similar shows.
Right.
Yeah, The Voice of Germany, I think we have similar shows like that.
And, you know, what they've done, and they're wonderfully entertaining, but they've also made us so judgmental about what is a good versus a bad voice. And also, they've introduced, particularly in the U.S., the concept of terms like pitchy. So people are always listening, and they're always very judgmental. Is this person a good singer or a bad singer? And I know that you know that there are, you know, ancient yogis and spiritual masters who have voices that sound a little bit like frogs croaking or whatnot, that have such incredible healing ability, although the aesthetic aspect of it may not be on that same level. Would you agree?
I agree. I also want to say that humming, and that's not yet in your book, that'll be in your sequel, humming is one of the most powerful techniques for intonation. And the only thing that I'm a little bit different than the Brahmari, which is pranayama is a deep breath and humming, which is a very powerful exercise. It's very important. But when you work with more natural breath and less deep breath and allow those vocal folds really to to go in a sucking motion in a way, you start to activate the vocal edges, and then through this hum, it's incredible. Nobody is pitchy anymore. So I think there's a lot of singers, if they would just keep on humming and humming and humming, their pitchiness would go out the window, because humming is one of the most powerful exercises for anybody to regenerate the voice and to get their intonation absolutely. If it's done without pressure, if it's done that's what I mean, without, deep. It's done in a very without pressure way. It's an excellent exercise for every single singer in the world. So highly recommended.
Absolutely. We couldn't agree more with that. And it's interesting, too, Cara, because when we decided to write our book on, humming, we thought, okay, who is going to read a book about humming? Everybody can hum. That's just such a, a simplistic form of sound. However, the first chapter of our book deals with only peer-reviewed scientific research, letting our readers know that it's not as simple. The humming part is simple, but the benefits are so powerful. And so the first chapter will discuss all of that, and we'll find out how humming can lower our blood pressure, our heart rate. It increases melatonin. There's just a myriad of physiological benefits that happen, which have been scientifically researched and discovered. And humming, who would ever have thought, humming could be so simple yet so powerful and effective.
Yeah, and it's like there's abundance that is surrounding us, and just like breath can be so powerful, I think, that is the gift, if we all come back and realize that we have these very simple and beautiful tools. Also, if we allow ourselves to laugh more, if we allow ourselves to cry more, all these it sounds so simple, and yet they're so powerful, right? And maybe you can share with us more. You talk about in your book the difference between the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, right, or the parasympathetic nervous system. How can our readers understand what this has to do with the humming effect? What does it have on our sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous system? What are these systems?
Very good question. And let's see, I have to put on my Mr. Science hat for that one, Cara. So let me see. It might have something to do with the vagus nerve. It might have something to do with the vagus nerve, which, as you know, is the longest nerve in the whole body and goes from our brain all the way down to I don't know where, but it affects everything from our digestion to our speaking to our heart rate to all these different things. And what's very, very interesting is that they found that the hum, and this, of course, gets us a little bit into the relationship between the hum and the ohm, because a number of the research that we found, as well as a number of different traditions, is suggested that the ohm actually came from the hum to begin with. That's from the Yoga Sutras, but also I remember one very, very dear friend of mine who's works with sound and music, and he was saying that they have found that the amygdala basically sort of shuts off when you hum. And the amygdala, of course, is not only an emotional thing, but usually the fight or flight response. And, that's related to this. But another sound that did not do this is the sound. So on a level, one can perceive that not all sounds are created equally.
I can tell you why, Jonathan. Do you want to know why?
I sure do.
Well, with the S, your vocal folds are not closed, they're open. So the S, the sound of Z, it would be interesting if the Z would work, but S is a sound created, with your lips and your teeth, but the folds themselves are wide open, whereas the M in the hum, the folds are closed. So that's my theory right there.
Okay, well,
the vibration of the folds, which are underneath the central part of your brain, that is right underneath directly. If you look at the your vocal folds are directly above your heart, and a lot of people they're putting the voice always in front of them, but actually the voice is in the middle of our body, the folds. And so on sounds like S, they didn't work. Probably in H they don't work either, or in F, because the vocal folds are not closed. But in N it might work. That's my theory over here in Berlin.
Yeah,
we'll go with that theory, Cara.
For today, it's just a theory.
I think so.
Yeah, I remember I have been a member of something called the International Society for Music Medicine, which is in actually Ludenscheid, Germany. And I remember when I was really actively involved, and I saw a lot of these scientists doing these different, shall we say, tests on sound and the effects of sound, and I saw that they were, from my perspective, missing certain pieces. And for example, what you just talked about, the vocal folds, etc., is really an extraordinary piece of information that probably a lot of the people doing the research and work don't know. And I find that so interesting.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We have certain sounds like that, exactly that F. I always ask people, F, for example, right? The folds are open, but with V, it's the same lip position, but the folds are closing. So the fascinating thing is we can open and close our vocal folds. We're just not conscious about it yet. Many of us are not conscious about the different vibrational points inside our mouth, whether it's the back of the tongue. And now I'm getting, of course, carried away on all this
sure,
on what I do for a living.
It's all connected and all very important to hear.
Yeah.
Well, you were talking about the amygdala, and you were talking about, all of this, the amazing part in the middle of our brain. And I think that's what we have to remember, is how the hum and also our voice, when it's making these vibrations, is, again, balancing hormone levels, balancing cortisol, balancing emotions. Andy, you talked about, you didn't say yet oxytocins, but I know it does this. But, that's just
nitric
phenomenal.
oxide, yay.
And, nitric oxide.
That'll come.
Yeah. And it's amazing because, when we are humming and that vibration is we're feeling that in our body. And what I like to suggest to people is to imagine that vibration is going to different parts of their body that may be out of alignment, out of tune.
Right.
And oftentimes, because there's so much happening in the brain, oftentimes I will hum and imagine that the neurosynaptic connections in my brain are firing stronger.
Yeah.
Because it really can do that just because of that vibration within the cavity of the head.
Exactly. So hold that thought. We're gonna go with that intent into a station break. Set your intent, you guys. Set your intent where you want, and in that break, you can listen to the ads and and hum your way to better health.
The cutting edge of conscious radio. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Connect at OMTimes.com. OMTimes, creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Conflict comes in many forms and often triggers a fight-or-flight response. Some of us gravitate toward conflict, while many will stop at little to nothing to avoid it. Unfortunately, what we resist will persist. which often forces us to face our fear and deal with it head on. Join me during my show, Conflict Rising, as I discuss the important role of conflict with leaders who have moved through it successfully. Tune in Thursdays at 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Remember, it's always darkest before the dawn.
With happy clients all over the world, Kara Johnstad knows that your voice is the missing link to more authenticity, abundance, creativity, and health. An internationally acclaimed voice expert, Kara's breakthrough methods have helped thousands of people successfully heal their voice wounds and extinguish the story of self-doubt and shyness forever. Join in group trainings, attend online sessions, schedule one-on-one time, and invite Kara to work with your organization and community. Get started today. Go to www.karajohnstad.com and receive a special guided meditation designed to fine-tune your inner voice and welcome you on the voice journey.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling on it.
The dad joke. Corny, groan-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
What did the buffalo say when he dropped his son off at school? Bye, son.
So take a moment to make your kid laugh, because dad jokes rule. Make your kid laugh today. Go to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Voice Rising. I'm your host, Kara Johnstad, and with me in the studio today are the co-authors of The Humming Effect, Jonathan and Andy Goldman, and we are deepening the conversation on sound consciousness and the ability that sound and humming has to heal and transform our world. Andy and Jonathan, welcome back.
Thank you, Kara.
Thank you, Kara. And I just want to also acknowledge that the Humming Effect, which is doing really wonderfully and seems to have found a resonance among many people. But my first book came out in 1992 called Healing Sounds, and that was a huge hit in Europe and has been translated, and that deals with mostly vocal harmonics, which I'm sure you're aware of, although let's get into a conversation about that, as well as we've written a book called Chakra Frequencies, Andy, and another one called The Divine Name, another one called Shifting Frequencies, and golly gee, so...
But all of them obviously very connected to bringing the information on sound as a healing modality to more and more people. And once again, the Humming Effect, it is our hope that more and more people will tune into the effects of sound as a healing modality. It's what's very exciting to us, and we just want to share it with as many people as we can.
Yeah, exactly. So besides all the books, besides all the research, besides all the workshops and retreats, you also bring out audio CDs and audio, nowadays we can say audio files or audio streams, but beautiful albums. And I would actually love to play something so that our listeners have an idea more about your work. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to start with Angelic Calling. Would you like to say something about this next track before we listen in?
I would love to. And thank you, and you're psychic, and God bless us all, and God has blessed us all, because I was going to ask if perhaps we could do that. Angelic Calling is from a recording called Chakra Chants. And basically, this is a recording that combines a number of different, shall we say, spiritual, mystical traditions, and also sound traditions which work to resonate the chakras using sound. And this one, it works with the, if you like, the crown center, which is located at the top of the head. And, so I ask your audience if they can listen. There's a specific vowel sound that's associated, from my perspective, with it, as well as what they call a bija mantra, as well as, potential frequencies. But just close your eyes and see if you can feel the energy at the top of your head. And the final thing that I want to say is this features myself, my wife Andy playing harp, and a beloved teacher of ours named Sarah Benson, who is indeed now in the angelic realms. But she said something to us, which I know you really can appreciate, many, many years ago, and it's one that I share whenever I can, and it's this: the true sound of healing is love.
Yeah. Beautiful. So let's listen to this track, Angelic Calling. Wonderful. We've been listening to the track Angelic Calling. I'm in studio with Jonathan and Andy Goldman, authors of the book called The Humming Effect. And we're talking today about sound consciousness and how creating that vibratory field within ourselves and without, we can say within and without, can really have a positive effect on our lives. And so, Andy, you were talking about before the break something called nitric oxide. You were talking about that science had discovered this important molecule called nitric oxide. And I remember you say oxide. I'm in Europe now. We say oxide. I'm thinking nitric oxide probably in America. Its attributes and it enhances our immune system. Why is this so important, and what in the world does nitric oxide have to do with humming?
Well, when we are humming, it increases the nitric oxide within our system, and that nitric oxide is a vasodilator, so there's more opening going into our blood vessels. And this molecule, it's really funny because when we talk about it, I always like to, Jonathan, it's his favorite molecule. Jonathan loves to tell the quick little story about it.
Well, and I believe in the early 2000s, it was actually voted at the Molecule of the Year. And I can just imagine this tiny little molecule going on stage and going, thank you very much, it's a pleasure, apples, type of thing. I don't know why. It just cracks me up, but it's like, so nitric oxide. And, of course, what's hilarious is that many people perceive of it as being the same thing as nitrous oxide, which is laughing gas, which is used in the dentist's office, which is a great thing, at that point in time and space. But at the same time, nitric oxide is just a wonderful tool, because when you are, if you like, vibrating yourself with your own sound, then that releases a lot of, from my perspective, this is perhaps not been yet scientifically proven, although it will be, but places where it's sound, where you get what is called vibroacoustic, where the sound is actually vibrating on an acoustic level as opposed to going into our ears, which is, of course, psychoacoustic. But when you get a vibroacoustic phenomena, then I think that what happens is that all of our cells throughout our body begin to sort of release nitric oxide, which is a very powerful thing. So I think it's going to prove to be more and more important as we go on. I mean, once again, this whole concept of researching the power of sound is perhaps not at the level that I had hoped 40 years ago when I got into doing this. I really thought that, in the next 10 or 15 years, things were just going to blossom and all this information was going to go out. But here, at least in the United States, there's a whole lot of, shall we say, emphasis on pharmaceuticals. And it's the pharmaceutical industry that seems to control most of the major research that goes on, because research is expensive. And if, as an example, one could find out that you could make a tone or a hum or a sound instead of taking a pill, it's less money to be made by the drug companies. So I think they're less interested. Andy?
And well, I just want to jump in here. Bruce Lipton, who is the best-selling author of Biology of Belief, gave us a beautiful quote, and he said, humming is a powerful non-pharmaceutical prescription for self-healing that has only positive side effects, such as harmony, health, and happiness. And so, when we talk about the pharmaceuticals and, the whole, arena of that, and to think that something as simple as humming, and once again, I want to just go back to Jonathan and I teach conscious humming. And when we are consciously humming, we are actually taking our frequency and our intention, and we are causing then the healing or, whatever differences in our body. But Jonathan, way back 40 years ago, I think, at this point in time, did come up with a formula, which is frequency plus intent equals healing. And I just think that that's such an important piece for our listeners to know about. Would love for Jonathan to maybe talk a little bit more about that, because it's I think what holds
and
the
Cara,
whole thing.
I know that you're in agreement of this, because we hadn't said it before, but we're basically talking about the fact that the voice, the sound, if speech, if you like, is a connecting point between the heart and the brain, the brain and the heart. So therefore, using and putting our intentionality into this is so very, very important, because I've heard people who are pitch perfect, beautiful, fabulous singers, and my heart feels empty. And I've also heard people who do not sing necessarily perfectly, and yet they are able to encode some sort of feeling within us that is truly magnificent.
Exactly. So you talk about, actually in your book, you talk about how can we encode the intent into our humming practice. So how can we imagine this? Help us through these steps. We're sitting down and doing a conscious hum, so we're starting to and how should we repeat a certain intention many times within that long hum? Should we think of certain colors, or is this a very individual process to encode the intent into our hum?
Well, Cara, I really have to perceive that we are all unique vibratory beings, and that is indeed, if you like, you very succinctly put it as an individual thing, because there are those of us who are wonderful visualizers. There are those of us who are wonderful X, Y, or Z. It's said that, among the best ways of encoding intentionality, of course, is to really sensitize it. In other words, feel it and encode it with a sense. But we all are active in different senses, and therefore, if somebody's, maybe they can smell it. Maybe they'll visualize a geometric form. Maybe they'll see a color. Maybe they'll feel it in their heart as an energy of love or something that they want for the other person. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I totally agree with that. I also agree simply that this is what makes voice also so powerful. And you talk also about in your book how the prayers, most of them are sung also, right? Or spoken.
Yeah.
I mean, they're given a voice, and so this is what happens when we put our emotional field together with the intent, and then what is smack in the middle, but that's what I love so much, is the hum, is the vocal folds that are opening and closing. I actually have this very strange theory about if you know how we program computers with the 0101, the folds are doing the same thing. They're opening, closing, open, close, open. And with our language and our sound bites, we are programming the world and also becoming programmed through other people's sound bites. And that is why it's such powerful magic. It's really powerful. And I think it's wonderful that you're doing this work, and that more and more people are doing this work. And when we talked about the pharmaceutical industry, a long, long time ago, and I think in many countries it's still like that the shamans would say, when's the last time you had a good story? This is how I know it. When's the last time you sang a great song? When's the last time, let me get this right, you danced? And when's the last time you had a good rest? And those were kind of the 4 pillars of trying to keep our worlds in balance. And it can be that simple, that we come back more and more to feeding our souls or our systems, good music. I mean, again, now what is good? Now it's getting complicated. Okay, Jonathan, Andy, you take it.
Well, I mean, it's so interesting because I think one of the things that we make in the book is I differentiate, and this is just me. It's not going to be, but I differentiate between sound and music simply because for a lot of people, they will basically perceive that, music is Mozart or music is jazz or music is this or that. But I have certain instruments at my home that are put out frequencies that are really semi-discordant, and yet they may be very, very healing when applied to the body. And, oftentimes, when people, think about sound healing, I don't want them to be expecting Mozart when something else is happening, when you're using tuning forks and you're applying them to the body, or even when, for example, you are humming, because for a lot of people, humming isn't very musical, but it could be very therapeutic and very healing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also, I think that when we are talking about sound and we are talking about using one's voice, right within our bodies, we have got this incredible tool that once we begin to understand how it works, as you teach so beautifully, Cara, and how we teach, how you can, do something as simple as humming. We also, of course, work with toning and all kinds of other sounds, but just knowing that you have that power within yourself, I think is just marvelous to kind of be reminded of.
Yeah, and to own that responsibility, right? That ability to respond that we have. That we're going to take a small break, and then we'll be back with Andy and Jonathan Goldman talking more about sound consciousness and the holy hum.
Bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
I'm Kathy Williams, host of Sexy Mom Abundant Life radio show on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. On the show, we explore living abundantly in every area of your life. Ways to let go of limiting patterns and beliefs and to step into the flow of creativity and possibility. knowing you are supported by the universe.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Voice Rising. I'm your host, Kara Johnstad, and with me in studio today are the co-authors of The Humming Effect, Jonathan and Andy Goldman, and we keep on diving deeper and deeper into the beauty and the power, the transformational power of something as simple as your hum. And I want to ask you one question, and then I would like to come back again to another sound so the listening audience can just keep on getting more and more of an idea of what you're doing. Your universe over there in Colorado, I have to say, really a universe, your empire is quite big, right? I mean, we think it's a simple hum, you guys, but you have books and you have CDs and you have workshops. You talk about in the book, you talk about two different ways that we can work with sound. You talk about the one way, and this is how I understood it, two different methods, that each part of our body, we can maybe think that it has a vibrational frequency, maybe our heart, our liver, our stomach, and that we can find frequencies and vibrations that would match that, and through that bring it back in create a natural resonance and create something called entrainment, where the body comes back into its natural harmonic state. Did I understand that correctly?
Right, where you're basically enhancing the natural, healthy resonant frequency of an organ, bone, or whatever. So totally correct, yes.
Exactly. So, and then the other way you were talking about, and then I had to smile, but you were talking about the power. We all know this picture. This is a picture. We're on radio now, so you guys imagine, the singer holding up the crystal glass. She taps on the glass, hears a tone, and hits that very high frequency. It's normally a very, very high frequency, and the crystal glass shatters. And that you're talking about also about how when you're working with pathogens and the intruders into our body, that sound is also able, just like it can create form, it can create harmony, it can also shatter. You want to talk more about that idea that's happening in sound therapy, in maybe high humming frequencies of the ability that we have to shatter disease?
Well, those particularly, and I like to thank you for bringing that up, because I think it's so important. It's, if you like, it came to me in a dream about 35 years ago, and the idea was that there were two ways. Number one, you could, if you like, enforce the and encode and amplify the energy of the organ, and at the same time, if you were able to use a frequency, you could use a frequency that would literally shatter like glass, or the walls of Jericho. Remember Joshua, right? This is biblical.
Joshua, the battle of Jericho.
There you go. Yeah, okay. So
and the walls came tumbling down.
Yeah, okay. So the idea, and this really seems to have first manifested through a guy by the name of Royal Rife back in the early 1900s, and unfortunately, he created an instrument that was very effective, and the shall we say the medical associations didn't really like it too much, so it caused the doctors that he was working with to recant, and he was actually put in jail. But most recently, there's a guy his name is Holland. He's from Skidmore, but he's working with some physicists, and they were doing literally the same thing, which is they were exploding cancer cells with sound. And actually, there's a French acupuncturist as well as a great musician, great sound healer named Fabien Mamon, who basically worked with audible frequencies within the audible range to basically shatter cancer cells. So that is another, way of doing it. And from my perspective, I really look forward to the time when both modalities can work together. Yeah. In other words, where we will be strengthening the healthy organ, and at the same time, through, if you like, putting out a frequency that would nullify, or it's almost like you're taking alcohol and you're sterilizing the skin so that the bacteria will not grow, that type of thing. So putting them both together, and I see that hopefully sometime in the very near future of sound as a healing modality.
Yeah, it's happening. It is happening, and with everybody working together all around the world. I mean, that's what we do feel. I'm here in Berlin, you're there in Colorado. Everyone is doing their part to make us more conscious of what it is to live in a sound mind, sound body. So that being said, I want to take a little tiny listen into this beautiful track that you've sent in called Cosmic Hum. I think.
No, let's go.
You want to do the other one?
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna do it. Okay, you get me on the heart. I thought hum was so good. Okay, Jonathan. Let's do then we're gonna do the heart chakra.
Thank you.
Only because it's you, Jonathan.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Let's listen to the heart chakra. Chakra, Mr. Goldman, there you go. So we can say, basically, not only humming, we can say toning, we can say singing. It's massaging the body from the inside out, increasing lymphatic circulation, melatonin levels. This one I'm working on, the anti-aging agent, and releasing endorphins. And, of course, oxytocin is the hormone produced by the hypothalamus and called the love hormone, the love hormone. Love.
Yeah. And it just wants me to remind our audience that beautiful quote that Jonathan said at the beginning of the interview that our dear beloved Sarua Benson taught us, our mentor and dearest, deepest friend. The true sound of healing is love. And
the true sound of healing is love.
That to me just sort of sums it up and is such a beautiful gift to just have in our awareness.
Indeed. I have so many questions for you that I'm not going to ask. Sometimes I do a radio show, and I think you'll have to be a guest on it.
You can call at some point.
We'll have to have Carr on.
We are connected by normal phone lines.
Indeed. But it's just so interesting because one of the things that one of the challenges for me is that there are people who are very much into certain frequencies are healing frequencies. If you play in this scale and this key, this is a healing thing. And I just, from my perspective, don't resonate with that because I always perceive of a mother who might be singing a lullaby, a wordless lullaby to their beloved newborn, and they're just doing it with the energy of love, and that child receives that energy, as opposed to needing to look at some sort of guitar tuner or whatnot to make sure they're singing in the right pitch. Do you agree with that?
I do, and I think actually John Diamond, there was a book somewhere a long time ago that was exactly this research, actually, that they had a classically trained singer singing the same song as a mother. What was missing was the intent, and the mother singing the lullaby actually strengthened the immune system, and with all their they had things to measure the meridians and the the blood levels and etc. And the mom with the intent of love won the game, won the research game.
Not surprising.
I knew John Diamond, very interesting career.
I mean, that's what it's about 25 years ago that I read that book, but it just popped into my, my mind when you were talking about it. And you guys have dedicated your life to researching, exploring, and honoring the powerful tools that are our essence: vibration, frequency, magnetism, presence. If you could distill that into a few sentences, what is your vision for our world, and what is your experience that you would like other people to know about the voice?
I would say that we heal the planet, we heal ourselves. We heal ourselves, and we heal the planet. We have a choice, and we can make a difference.
Absolutely. And the powerful essence that we have in our bodies, our voice, can help us to vibrate and resonate in the highest frequency of our inner truth, which from our perspective is love.
And Cara, I would like to invite you and your listeners to take part in an event that we've been doing now for about 19 years on February 14th, which turns out to be Valentine's Day here in the United States. But it is called World Sound Healing Day. And at that day, we make an ah sound, which is, many people consider that to be a sound from, of love from the heart. And we encode it as a sonic valentine to our planet. And there is some data to indicate that our, if you like, conceptual combined sound coupled with intentionality can literally interface with what I call the Gaia matrix. And basically, I think that we can, our planet definitely needs our help at this point. and we can help it with our light, our love, and our sound.
And also, Cara, I'd love to invite our audience, if they would like to get more information about our work, to visit our website, which is Healing Sounds. Sounds is plural, healingsounds.com. And we have just a plethora of information and tools and educational material that we hope can be of help and benefit to many, many people. So healingsounds.com.
Healingsounds.com. And Jonathan, I just wanted to say I really do agree with you. And if we think that everything is one, that there are no right or wrong tunes or frequencies, I do think people get caught up thinking certain scales are going to lead to certain things, and they really forget that it might be the buzz or the kick or the that we have to also tune into our intuition, what is working for us, because we are that complex and that simple, and a certain scale that might work for somebody else might have a different effect on us, and we might be drawn to more metal instruments in a moment, or more wooden instruments, or we might be drawn into also more silence, which is the inner voice working, right? So I think it's commendable that you have that very open mind and heart to look at sound as, like a good cook. You can't always say that it has to be that way. I mean, you can add different ingredients and still get great results, right?
I want to thank you so much for having said that, because it is totally in alignment with our belief system and our understanding of the way things work. So thank you.
And we really like to feel that we're fluid. We are these vibrational beings that are not the same, and so having that ability to listen.
We shift and change depending upon the time, space, and all these other things as well.
So listen within.
Listen within. Thank you so much, Andy. Thank you, Jonathan. Andy and Jonathan Goldman with me today at Voice Rising. Go get their book, The Humming Effect, and all the other books that are really too long to list because they are simply creating much beauty for our world. Thank you again for all you do for our humanity, and I hope to have you back again at some point very soon.
Thank you very much, Cara.
Thank you.
We have the strength.